board, the people that make it up. So I think that we're going to have to, you know, give them a chance. And you know, it's a big wheel, and it takes a little time to roll over, and at least takes enough time to put a new contract in order. So unless I don't hear the unions wanting to tear up their contracts, but that's what it takes, and start over again. So we'll see what happens, and we'll be there to make sure that it's fair. And you know, you look at the people in this room. You know, if you're qualified, you should have a. You know, there's a benefit to being bilingual in this area, but only where it's required.
And we're still
We're
beyond
asking
will.
for French to be an asset, not mandatory.
Yeah.
And
French to be an asset, not mandatory. And I believe when you put...
Well, it'll be mandatory on a certain percentage of the jobs.
And
And I don't think anybody here is arguing that.
20%
is the percentage.
It should be past
it should
that
be.
already.
It's way past it.
Have you
so
spoke with anybody from the church?
Well, you know, but you look at it, if it's mandatory for 20% of the jobs, and all the other jobs are open.
Right now it's mandatory for about 95% of the jobs, so.
this is what's coming down to, yeah.
Well, I think they're working on that, so, you know, let's give them a chance to look at it.
I think they're not.
Yeah. Well, they also depend on the community for donations.
Have you
that's a
spoke
big
to
one.
anybody there?
I have talked to them, and they are working on it. I've talked to the chair, and I've talked to the CAO. And they've called a few meetings. I think some of you people have probably been at the meetings on staff. And, I mean, it's something they're going to have to work with. They have to work within the contracts that are there. They can't change them. You know, it's illegal to do that. It is certainly up for negotiation when they come up, and I don't imagine they're too far away. They can start to, you know, if the union agrees, if your union's agree, they can start to move earlier. And I think OWN is at that time was the only union that agreed. Because, you know, it's like anything else. I mean, I've worked with unions. As soon as you want to make a change, there's always something else. And then that's usually the impasse. But I think the membership that day told them what their priorities were, and I think there's some changes because of it. And that's just labor negotiations.
I would like to see this...
8 years in the making.
8 years.
8 years in the making.
8 years in the making.
Discriminated against at this hospital, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Just
I
a
know
lot of
people. I've talked to personal friends. The same thing. I don't, you know, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and
We have a
I think
nursing
it's time
shortage,
for.
first of all, in this Ontario and in all of North America, and we have a brain drain in our society as well. All our educated people are moving south, they're moving west, they're not staying in their own community.
Well, if they don't get the opportunity here, they're going to move west, right?
And we also have an area that has a lower educational.
So we're in that, yet we're going to choose from the 20%, remember that.
Yeah.
Think of those numbers, right?
But, I mean, the positive thing is it's raised visibility on it, and I really believe we're going to see some changes to make it fair. And you know, there's the extremes on both sides want to see a better system, and this is all part of it.
I have a question. You as our representative, you said it's going to take time. I'm getting the message of just leave it in the hospital's hands and it will take time, which is kind of time. You're our elected representative. We would like to know what you're going to do. Are you going to go back to the assembly and speak to the other members there? Or what's your role? Are you going to help us?
Well,
help the
role here is really with the hospital board and the unions involved to come up with, they have to change the contracts to reflect the, you know, things like seniority, progression. That's got to be changed locally. I mean, nobody can throw out those contracts.
So as for this...
I mean, it doesn't matter who you're working for. You enter into your contract, it's legal and binding on both sides.
But, so you're saying as for this won't be presented to the...
No, I'm saying as far as expecting legislation changes. The legislation is there and it allows the community to develop their policies.
To me, for somebody not doing it, it's ethically wrong not to even look at that, because it shows that people are being disadvantaged here.
Yeah, I'll take this up and I'll show the number of signatures. I have no problem with that, but I say expecting us to new legislation in the next. The legislation there is, I mean, maybe it hasn't been instituted fair. I would argue that, but this is the opportunity. You know, as I say in my notes, I've said before, the hospital board is very interested in creating, you know, the best health care. A lot of that is through donations.